Hello besties and welcome back to Penguin Platform. My name is Joel and today we're starting something new on the Platform channel, which I'm personally really excited about because it combines both my love of research and my love of books and reading all into one amazing subject. And so it's with my utmost pleasure that I get to introduce to you Penguin Explorer. Each episode I will take a little bit of a dive into some bookish things, whether it's to do with reader habits, literature as a whole, or whether it's just taking that little bit of a look behind the mind of a reader and what is behind the bookish experience. And so it's really exciting that I just get to have a look at some of the questions posed by reading as a whole. Through this you'll get to see some really interesting topics, but today I thought I would keep something light, easy and universal that is basically plaguing most readers on a daily basis. That is big books that are like 600 plus pages going over to like 1,200 pages. You know, the pages that are like Bible pages, those kinds of books. They are scary, and a lot of readers do resonate with me when I say that, because big books can be daunting, it can be terrifying. Today we're going to be taking a look behind what makes readers so terrified of bigger books, and also why some readers are able to tackle big books. I mean, we've seen instances of bigger books in the past, whether it's this Penguin English Library edition of Middlemarch at 944 pages, this edition of Don Quixote, which stands at 1,056 pages, or even the Count of Monte Cristo at a whopping 1,276 pages. I mean, that already just like turns me off reading that book. However, I do kind of want to read it at some point. There's something about these longer tomes that makes us afraid of the longer time it'll take to read them, but also it gives some people that sense of adventure, that sense of challenge, and they thrive off being able to read longer books. I'm more so in the middle. It depends on the book that I feel challenged by, but hey ho. And so without further ado, let us jump right on in. Okay, so over on Instagram, it's fictionalfates if you want to go follow me there. I asked a few questions on my Instagram story in order to get a deeper dive behind what readers thought about bigger books, and the results were really interesting, to say the least. I asked an overall poll about if people liked reading bigger books or not, and approximately around about 3,000 readers responded to that poll, so we do have a very good data collection. In terms of this, 49% of readers felt that they were afraid of bigger books, and then whilst 51% of them mentioned that they weren't afraid of them at all. And this was a very surprising result, because I didn't expect the result to be so even on this scale, and especially with like 3,000 people answering this poll, it was definitely weird to see an even result. I often assumed that it was the majority of readers that felt that bigger books were a challenge, but as this survey now shows, this may no longer be the case. This may be the case that we are getting used to reading larger texts, and that is very interesting, because this could be down to a multitude of reasons. The growing page lengths that we're seeing nowadays in fiction, books are getting longer, narratives becoming more enjoyable and engrossing for the reader to read despite their length, or even just having more time nowadays to dedicate to reading larger books. As we've seen throughout this global panini, there have been a multitude of people dedicating more time to reading based on an assumption people could have more time to read larger books, and thus they're not becoming afraid of larger books anymore, which is really, really great to see. However, there are also a multitude of reasons why readers might be afraid or just don't like reading larger books as well. Considering how we're now a generation of quick and easy access to content through stuff like Instagram, Twitter and TikTok, we may not want to spend a longer amount of time reading a certain book, as we may just become disinterested quickly. Although I am afraid of making generalizations and assumptions based off of just the poll alone, and so I asked more specific questions to the 49% that don't like reading and the 51% that do like reading larger books. And so when I asked the 49% why they didn't like reading larger books so much, we got a multitude of reasons, and they were also very interesting as well because there was a diverse range of reasons why. Some readers mentioned that because larger texts are usually long, they're afraid that they'll lose interest quickly if the story doesn't engross them or interest them within the opening pages, or they may just get turned off the book 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the book. And this is definitely a real fear of mine, because I'm also afraid that the book might just turn me off 2/3 of the way through, and then I'll feel like I've wasted basically like 400 pages so far trying to get through this text. However, I find that with me, I just take a break from the book and return to it later. But it's definitely been an issue with some of the books that I have read in the past, but sometimes there can be some books that allow you to remain gripped. It's just, I guess, finding the book that has been recommended by other people. A lot of readers mentioned that they have a massive fear of commitment to a longer text, which is completely valid, as spending a large amount of time with one novel can be quite daunting. Some of us just prefer the gratification that comes with finishing a text within a matter of days, and a longer novel means that it'll take longer, maybe even weeks, for us to finish that. Plus, it's also that gratifying feeling of seeing that Goodreads goal go up by one, but then on the flip side, inevitably reminding me that I am 12 books behind on my goal for this year. Yes, Goodreads, I do see you. So there needs to be a balance between finding the gratification of finishing a smaller book whilst also trying to read a larger book and maybe seeking a larger amount of gratification through that. Other people mentioned skepticism, which was really interesting to see, as sometimes when approaching a larger text, they question why a book should be this long, why a book needs to be 1,270 pages. Would the story have been better being a shorter text overall, maybe even cutting out a lot of the content within it? This, I found a lot of readers resonated with, as they mentioned that often books have unnecessary moments or scenes that just drag them out as a whole, and readers just feel the need to skip them. I find that with some books, they just like filler scenes that just don't provide anything to the text and instead are just there because they need the book to fill up a bit more. And so by cutting that out, the book becomes shorter, more condensed, and keeps the action packed, which is great to see. However, some people do like the atmosphere and the ambiance within a text, and so maybe having it longer allows us to still remain within that atmosphere, which is also really intriguing to see. Numerous readers then mentioned that they also have shorter attention spans, quoting that they can get easily bored or forgetful of a book's contents if it's too long. Perhaps also even forgetting what happened by the time they get halfway through a book. A lot of readers also mentioned that it's just harder to maintain focus whilst reading a longer text, and that they feel like they have to force themselves through in order to get to the more interesting parts. And I definitely do see like the reasoning behind that as well, as someone with ADHD, because it's hard for me to sometimes maintain focus and just I feel the need to like skip pages in order to get to the more interesting plot heavy parts. But then I also find that I want to take my time with it and still remain engrossed within the atmosphere, so it's really a really hard battle between wanting to just skip to the action and wanting to remain in the atmosphere, if you get me. And finally, and this one was actually a funny one for me, but also something that does completely make sense because of past experiences, some readers just don't like how heavy big books are, and valid. Just absolutely valid. I mean, just imagine trying to carry a copy of Don Quixote into your coffee shop, placing Don Quixote on a table, and then the coffee table then falling over, spilling coffee everywhere because you realize the weight of Don Quixote was a bit too much for the table, causing it to topple over. Yeah, so I've definitely had experiences of big books causing some slight issues in my life. But yeah, it's definitely a valid answer, and I can definitely see why the weight of a bigger book, and especially on your back as well. Like, imagine trying to like carry like 5 big books in a backpack. That would do such a number on your back. Ooh, no. To summarize, readers find big books hard because of long commitments, short attention spans, skepticism, and also the heavy weight. And it's definitely valid to see that because sometimes readers just want a shorter book. They just want something that they can read in an afternoon or maybe just like devour within a few hours, and that's completely valid. Like, I think that larger text can be quite daunting for a lot of people, especially for young readers as well. Like, some young readers just see a 1,000 page block of text and they're like, no, I don't want to read that. I want to try and attempt to read Don Quixote like next month. And it's already daunting me seeing that page count, but I think like I'm just going to try and power through it, you know? But this is where the 51% of people from the survey came in, who very kindly enough gave us some methods in which we are able to tackle larger texts and seeing how they were able to read bigger books as a whole and why they enjoy them. And so some people mentioned how much they loved reading bigger books because they love being able to stay longer within a story world and experiencing the story for longer because they get to know the characters on a deeper level. They're able to explore the world and get to know the world better. They're able to just experience and escape for longer as well. And I definitely resonate with that through my experiences of reading longer books as well, because I find that the longer I'm able to stay within a world, the better, because I initially find with shorter books that I will want to stay within that world for longer than they give me, and there's that sense of like loss because I'm not able to remain within that world because there's no more text. But with a 1,000 page book, I'm like, I get to stay within this world for a longer period of time, and if I'm enjoying it, I'm going to love it. So I can definitely see why people who read bigger books would love this. And so sometimes having a longer book can really help with the reading experience because you're just able to stay within your favorite worlds for much longer than you anticipate. A few readers also mentioned buddy reading or reading in installments really helped with reading larger books, whether it's sticking to a set amount of pages per day or per week, or just being able to discuss the book with someone. They found it easier to dedicate time to a large text as they either had someone to share it with or they knew exactly when they would finish the longer book, which means that they have a goal in mind and it's easier to reach. And plus, by breaking up the book into smaller chunks, it definitely makes the goals more attainable, because if you only have to read 50 pages a day and the book, let's say, is 1,000 pages, you'll be done in 20 days, which is actually a really good amount of time to stay dedicated to reading a book. These two methods I've found invaluable in my reading experiences, as finding someone to buddy read a book with and discuss with really helps me maintain interest and just engrossing myself within the book, whilst also breaking up the book into installments or parts really helps with that gratification of finishing the part for the day. So instead of reading an entire short book and getting that gratification, I'm getting it from reading, let's say, 10 chapters of a book. And plus, it just makes the book easier to read, because if I only have to read 50 pages every day for 20 days, it's easier to build that habit than it is to be like, oh, I'm gonna read this entire 250 page book today. But as well, I guess I can also see why people would be afraid of that kind of commitment, because then they're spending 20 days with a larger text, and so they might want to read something else within the month, and so maybe increasing the installments to 100, 200 pages, whatever works for you, essentially. Other readers mentioned that consuming the book via another format also made it a lot easier for them to read the book. Some readers mentioned that audiobooks were an invaluable tool for them to read larger texts, as they were able to do other things whilst also listening to the audiobook. Some people lead very busy lives, may not be able to consume larger books physically, and so listening to it via audio can really help, as they're easily able to listen to it on a commute or even just whilst they're doing other things, and it just makes it very much more accessible to them. Others also mentioned how ebooks were invaluable to them, as it made it lighter and easier to carry, for one, but also two, the format made it slightly easier for them to consume the text, as they couldn't physically see how many pages they had remaining, and so unless you look at the little location thing at the bottom, you won't know how long you have left in the text. And I think that is also a really valuable tool, because then you can just keep reading and reading and reading until eventually you're just right at the end of the book and you're like, oh, it's done. Although I don't think I could ever do that. I have done that. Right, okay, moving on. Some readers also mentioned how having a reading journal or reading notes helps them with reading a larger text, as if they have short attention spans and forget some details about the book quite easily, if they return to a book after a while or a break, they're able to reacquaint themselves with what has happened so far and just get back into it. So it's kind of like getting back into a show after a while and having that, here's what you missed, and it has a recap of everything so that you're easily able to get back into the show. Reading notes kind of do that for me, and I really do like the sense of that, because it's just I don't need to reread the 200 and something pages I've already read. I can just continue on with the book straight away, and I love that. I love that so much. And finally, some readers just mentioned they had the sheer willpower and patience to power through the longer text, and for that I commend them, because wow, just wow. Just wow. But overall, people just mentioned that if the story is engaging enough, the time you spend reading it and the pages you read in the book will feel like nothing at all. And so I really like that, because then it doesn't matter how long the book is. If you're enjoying it, you'll just want to read more and more and more. So to summarize this portion, the 51% of readers who aren't afraid of reading larger books quote that whilst it can be daunting to read a longer text, sometimes thinking about how long it is can put you off reading it more than it should. If you just focus on the story and its contents, break it up into easy, manageable chunks, then it may become easier for you to dedicate more time to the book and reading the book. And with this in mind, it's why I like when books break themselves up into parts, like you can see with some books where they're like part 1, part 2, part 3. I kind of like 3-part, 4-part books specifically, but anyway, because it just gives me that clean section break where I can take a break to stop reading if I need to. And so if I get to the end of like part 1 of the book, then I know that if I take a break from reading the book, then I can return to the book later on without having to like be like, oh, I'm in the middle of something, because the book has purposefully ended the part there for a reason. So it makes it a little bit easier for me. So overall, should we be afraid of bigger books? Not at all. But is it healthy to have a general wariness of them? Absolutely. Readers have a variety of tastes, and sometimes reading large text just isn't on their radar. It's also okay to try out bigger books to see if the contents are interesting enough, and it's okay to put them down if it isn't grabbing you, or if you just get bored of it part of the way through. You can return to them later and you can just find the motivation to pick them back up again. I think that we put so much pressure on ourselves to stick to a book through and through, but sometimes it's just okay to put the book down and return to it another time. And so yeah, this wraps up the first installment of Penguin Explorer. I hope you had so much fun with me exploring this initial topic of big books, and if we should be afraid of them. I think this was definitely a good topic to start off the series with, and so in the future we'll be able to delve into some deeper topics, but for now I wanted to keep things a little surface level to give you a little bit of a sneak peek as to what's to come. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to the platform channel in order to see the next episode of Penguin Explorer, but also to check out the other amazing content created for platform. And if you'd like to see more of what I do, I have my social medias linked in the description down below so that you can go check me out on my YouTube channel and also my other socials as well. And so I hope to see you over there in the near future. And so yeah, I guess until the next time, see you later, platform.